Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
Terror and devastation hit the community of Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh this weekend as 46-year-old terrorist and anti-Semite Robert Bowers attacked the Tree of Life synagogue, killing at least 11 and injuring many others. Over 50,000 Jews live in the area, and congregants were celebrating a baby naming ceremony during Saturday morning services when the shooter entered the building. This attack is now considered among the deadliest anti-Semitic hate crimes in modern American history, and Bowers eventually surrendered to police and was taken in alive, but not until after killing 10 congregants and a police officer in a shootout. 2 other officers were also shot, and Bowers reportedly declared to police that, quote, "all these Jews need to die," end quote. According to reports, Bowers entered the Tree of Life synagogue with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle and a Glock pistol. He then mounted his assault on congregants on the first floor and in the basement before being pinned down by SWAT forces, who eventually secured his surrender. FBI officials already stated that they intend to mount a full investigation into how and why Bowers committed this terrible act, but that, quote, "at this point we have no knowledge that Bowers was known to law enforcement before today," end quote. That being said, the FBI are treating the attack as a hate crime at this time, charging Bowers with 29 counts of criminal violence and firearms offenses, as well as for violating civil rights laws. United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions has also commented that he would likely seek the death penalty in this case. But while the FBI claims not to have known about Bowers before, Bowers isn't new to the world of anti-Semitism. He's a regular, active member of so-called alt-right anti-Semitic and neo-Nazi groups. In fact, just 2 hours before the attack, Bowers tweeted that HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, quote, "likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics, I'm going in," end quote. Well, the optics aren't bad, they're abhorrent, and the world has responded in kind. President Trump called for the, quote, "vile, hate-filled poison of anti-Semitism," end quote, to be condemned and confronted. French President Macron likewise expressed his solidarity in the aftermath of the shooting, and in Tel Aviv, as in other instances of terror around the world, the municipality building at Rabin Square lit up in the colors of the American flag. Further, Israeli Diaspora Affairs Minister Naftali Bennett announced that he'd be visiting the scene of the attack and the funerals of those killed, and Prime Minister Netanyahu reiterated, too, that the entire Israeli people grieve with the families of the dead. In other news, violence along the Gaza-Israel border erupted yet again this weekend as well, including roughly 16,000 Gazan Palestinians riding along the fence on Friday, followed by terror groups firing roughly 40 rockets into southern Israeli communities. First, along the Gaza Strip's border fence, IDF forces shot and killed 4 Palestinians and wounded at least 80 others as the weekly Hamas-led March of Return protests continued. The 1,600 Palestinians in the riot threw grenades, homemade explosives, Molotov cocktails, and stones at Israeli troops, while burning tires, setting fires, and otherwise attempting to damage or infiltrate the security barrier. The protests have been ongoing since March 30th, and Israeli Air Force airstrikes in response on Friday targeted 3 Hamas positions in northern Gaza. Then, overnight Friday to Saturday, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad forces fired nearly 40 rockets aimed at southern Israeli cities. Sirens sounded over a dozen times, but thankfully there were no serious injuries reported. Most rockets fell in open fields, and 2 fell back into the strip, but the Iron Dome defense system was activated and launched interceptors at least 10 times. Afterwards, Israeli jets again went into the strip in retaliation, reportedly hitting a whopping 80 terror targets belonging to both Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Then, after suffering Israel's return attack, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror group supposedly announced it was accepting an Egyptian-brokered ceasefire effective immediately, and the IDF removed all security restrictions in the area. But with the violence escalating the way it's been, Israeli locals on the border areas feel frozen and have announced intentions not to return their kids to schools anyway. They call on the government to step up its response to the attacks, but only time will tell if their calls will be properly heard. Moving on, Wolfgang Siebert, the head of a Reformed Jewish community in Pittsburgh, Germany, has now officially resigned from his position following the revelation of documents proving that he'd been lying about his Jewish roots. This after Siebert initially denied the allegations and withheld any statement pending discussions with his attorney. But now the head of the Jewish Communities Association in the state of Schleswig-Holstein said Friday that Siebert is resigning with, quote, "immediate effect to avert further damage," end quote. That being said, Siebert's lawyer, Alexander Hoffman, said that his client is committed to his Jewish faith and will work to regain the community's trust. The story on Siebert's deception first broke in the German weekly newspaper Der Spiegel, citing documents that harshly question Siebert's Jewish heritage. First and foremost, that Siebert claims his grandparents had both survived Auschwitz. Beyond that, the 71-year-old Siebert has been leading the Pittsburgh Jewish community since 2003 and publicly identifies as a Reform Jew. But family documents show that none of his parents nor his grandparents are Jewish, and that he has never converted to Judaism formally. Worse still, aside from Siebert actually being born and baptized to Christian Protestant parents, his grandparents were no Holocaust survivors. The opposite. His father and his father's father were both soldiers in the Nazi war machine of the Second World War, and it was also revealed that Siebert has several criminal record cases of fraud and embezzlement. However, we at ILTV have yet to find whether Siebert will be charged with fraud or a related offense for this incident as well. Finally, in an incredibly historic moment this past Friday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a secret visit to Oman, a Muslim Arab Gulf state which has no formal diplomatic ties with Israel. The visit was kept secret until after Netanyahu returned back to Israel Friday afternoon, and this visit to Oman is the first by an Israeli leader in over the last 2 decades. Omani Sultan Qaboos bin Said Al Said extended an invitation to Netanyahu and his wife Sarah, and after lengthy contacts between the 2 countries, the couple came for a visit accompanied by the Mossad chief and his national security advisor. After returning home, the 2 countries released a joint statement which said that the 2 leaders discussed, quote, ways to advance the peace process in the Middle East, as well as several matters of joint interest regarding the achievement of peace and stability in the Middle East, end quote. Then, later on Friday at the Bahrain Security Summit, Omani Foreign Minister Yusuf bin Alawi bin Abdullah said that Israel should be treated the same as other regional states. He added that the road for peace is not an easy one paved with flowers, but Oman's priority is to put an end to the conflict and to move to a new, more peaceful world. Bin Alawi also then offered to assist in Israel-Palestinian peace talks, and while Oman would not serve as a mediator, it would offer ideas for negotiations while expressing support for peace efforts led by the United States. Saudi Arabia and Bahrain then responded, showing support for Oman's initiative and the US-led peace efforts as a whole as well. Perhaps with all these powers finally aligning, a Middle East peace can finally actually be achieved.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.